Hi, and thanks for joining us for another Technical Tuesday. I know it's been a while since we've done these. We've had a lot going on at HAF, and somehow it's easy for these videos to just kind of get lost in the weeds. I don't know how that happens. But in any event, we're back today. And with everyone being under construction, lots of things going on, and lots of really great technical in. We figured today might be a good day to chat a little bit about contractors, contracts, because that seems to be the big thing. So everyone's got a project going on, and of course, everyone's asking for the contractors list, which is wonderful, and then calling lots of contractors, and of course, not getting return phone calls, because everyone's booked through, I think, October at this point. It sounds like. So I figured today we would just go over a couple of rules of thumb, things to remember when talking about or talking to contractors. It's something that we never think about until it's too late, and then you have that moment of clarity at the end of the project and go, why did I not do this? The next time I do a project, we're going to do it this way instead. Um, so I figure we'll try and answer some of those questions today. I don't know if I can see the comments. If anyone has any, no, they're not popping up. Post them if you have them, and we'll just answer them in the text later. Since, as always, there's some kind of technical issue. But yeah, so good place to start our contractors list. If you're looking for someone to do kind of preservation friendly work, Historic Albany has a list of contractors who do that sort of work. They typically work in historic districts. They're usually known to us, whether they come to us through a Preservation Merit Award or we see them come through the Historic Resources Commission and really like the work that they do. If you're going from contractors for our list or from Angie's list or neighborhood recommendations, I know a lot of neighborhood Facebook pages do contractor recommendations and stuff now. The key thing to remember is that some of these things aren't always a reference or a recommendation, and that getting references is definitely critical regardless of whether or not they're on HAF's contractors list or you get them from Angie's list or whatever. I always like to try and get 3 different quotes because all contractors are different. You've got personalities in there, you've got work experience, all those different things really do play a huge fact. They have a huge impact on your project because these people, they're in your home, they're in your personal space. You have to be comfortable with them and okay with them here and everything. So you don't want to just let anybody in. So getting 3 quotes from people is always a really good idea, so you can judge them a little bit. What they're quoting you on, their pricing, because you really can't compare 2 prices. You don't really know, okay, well, one's high, one's low, but what exactly does that mean? So 3 quotes is always really good, and that gives you, again, as I kind of mentioned very briefly, the gamut of what the price range is. Some people, when they're really busy, they'll set prices really, really high, and it's like they don't want the job. Others, sometimes if they don't have the experience, they'll kind of lowball it a little bit, not really knowing exactly what's going to go in here, and then the prices go up later. Um, Usually you'll have a small area where you've got a couple that are sort of close together, and you can kind of figure out, okay, this one makes a little bit more sense, and yeah, they obviously know what they're doing. So by the time you get references and see what projects they've worked on, I mean, websites are great, but let's face it, most contractors don't really have websites with projects they've worked on, because most contractors are too busy doing good work instead of blogging about it on Facebook or a website or whatever. Um, so you're able to compare all those things with multiple quotes. And then references. So once you pick somebody you kind of like, you want to get references for them. And like I said too, yes, we may have them on our contractors list for HAF, but it's definitely not a reference. We don't work with all of these contractors every day. We don't talk to them every day, and they're not in our homes. So you want to talk to the people who they're working with. So never be afraid to ask a contractor for references. I highly recommend it. Every time we talk to someone who's had a bad experience with a contractor, they took a recommendation from a friend and definitely didn't get references, and they really wish they had in the end. So it's something that's worth the time and effort. We know how hard it is to get contractors to call you back, and by the time they call you back, you just want your project done. You don't want to go around calling references, but it is worth it. Um, Contracts are a big thing that we've been talking to people about a lot lately. There's several different things. Most contractors will give you an estimate. An estimate is not the same thing as a contract. So if you have an estimate for roughly this is how much it's going to be, that's not necessarily a hard and fast number of we are not going to exceed this number. So estimates are great, and you can go by an estimate if you're comfortable with that. But what you want to look at a little bit more is what your contract with your contractor says and is. You want to make sure if it is just an estimate number they're giving you, is there a not to exceed number? So you know what your budget is. Be upfront. This is your budget. You're willing to put $5,000, $200, whatever your budget is. This is what you have to put into this project. And you don't want to exceed this number. You're more comfortable with, say, a smaller number, and this is where you'd like to keep it, but we can't exceed this higher number. Be upfront with your contractor. That way they know this is what the stopping point is. And if you can get that written into a contract with a, kind of do not exceed number, that's great. I like to include things with my contractors where as you're exceeding that, status updates are great. Talk to them as they're doing the work. Don't just assume everything's going perfectly. If they're not saying anything or whatnot, things pop up. They always do, and it is the nature of the beast. So always weekly updates are great with them, where they are on schedule for the project, are materials coming in, those kinds of things. You want to know this. It's your home, it's your project. You should know what's going on with everything. So as you're approaching these either do not exceed or what the estimate costs were, you want to know how far along is the project. Are you hitting that budgeted number and you're halfway through and all of a sudden this is, twice the size you thought it was and something you really can't take on this year or whatnot, and you need to know, do you need to stop this and regroup and go on from there, or what do you do? So communicate with your contractors about what's going on and keep tabs on where they are financially in the project, because you don't want to get too far down and then find, oh, there are all these hidden costs at the end, because this comes up a lot. Things pop up, a windowsill is rotted, or, something needs way more work than it does, a door's not quite right for the opening, and now you've got to plane down the opening, and maybe that didn't get planed down right or something, and now they've got to go get new wood for the opening, and mahogany's not cheap, so where is this going? So always keep tabs on things like that. I find too, one other thing to look at too in cost and money up front and things, always ask for receipts. If they're going to ask for money up front, you want to know what it's for. Materials are kind of one thing. Yes, if they're going to be doing work, you want to make sure obviously they have materials and whatnot. It is okay to give upfront money for materials and whatnot, but you don't want to be giving the whole thing away at the beginning. You shouldn't be paying the payroll for all of their workers at the beginning. Working with someone who can't make his payroll and whatnot is generally not a great thing. So you want to make sure you're not paying too much upfront. You want to know what are the material costs for this week's project or part of the project, and maybe that's what you do up front. So these are all conversations to have with your contractor. As you're picking one, as you're moving through the project, you want to know, what are they expecting? Are they expecting how much down? What are you paying for? Lots of things, and never be afraid. Always, if you have questions, please feel free to call us. Email is obviously the easiest, since we're all working from all over the place, obviously from my backyard today in Troy. But yeah, call, email with questions. We're happy to answer questions with, does this sound far-fetched? Is this crazy? I mean, these are conversations when we go into the office. We all have when talking about our projects. It's, well, I got a quote for this. That sounded really high. Does that sound high to you? We're happy to answer questions like that and just chat. Sometimes it's helpful to have a soundboard with someone that knows what they're talking about or is familiar with what you're doing. So please use us as a resource. Let's see. I think I've covered all of my main points. I think the key thing to really hammer home is to communicate with people as you're going through the process. Having paper trails of things, whether it's text messages, emails, some kind of something you can reference back to is definitely helpful. But also, it definitely does not fully take the place of talking in person. When you have an issue with a contractor, you need to meet with them on site and talk to them about it. You want to look at what they're working on, whether it's bringing, windows back in or a door back in, or you go outside and look at the pointing job they just did. Don't be afraid to have them come look at your house. I know it's very frustrating sometimes and you just want to be done. You don't want to be dealing with it. But you really can nip things in the bud at a much earlier time, and the project will go so much smoother if right at the beginning, when things start to sound a little questionable, you don't really like where this is going, it's, nope, why don't you come over, let's take a look at it, meet and discuss this. It really clears up so many questions. A lot of things really are misunderstandings. Not that there aren't people out there that take advantage of all kinds of stuff on all sides, but But really, a lot of it is it's misunderstandings. More often than not, people genuinely want to do a good job for you. You genuinely want to work with someone who wants to do a good job on your house. And it's everyone thinks they understand one thing and they're hearing another. And so making sure you have those face-to-face communications and then supplemented with things in writing really are invaluable, and they really do make a project go much, much smoother. So now that I've blabbered all of you for 10 minutes on this beautiful Tuesday, I'll send you off to work on your own projects. Please feel free to communicate with us. Like I said, call or email. My email is cmacri at historic-albany.org, and that's the best way to get a hold of me. We can put that in the comment section. Since I can't see the comments at the moment, anyone that's posting comments, I can answer them afterward. And good luck with all of your projects. Thanks for joining.